All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive
Yeah,
into the world of survivalism.
it's going to be a good one.
This is going to be a good one. This is Urban Escape and Evasion,
Oh, yeah.
and we've got a bunch of resources for this one.
Yeah, we do. We got a whole stack of YouTube videos from survivalist channels. We got some blog articles from survivalist websites.
We had some in-depth websites, like deep dives into this. So
Oh, yeah, this is going to be an intense one.
this is going to be really interesting, yeah.
By the end of this, listeners are going to have a whole new perspective on what it means to survive in an urban environment.
Yeah, so this is for everyone, I think. This isn't just for people who consider themselves preppers.
Right,
It's,
guy.
for anyone who lives in a city or spends time in a city,
Yeah.
who might find themselves in a situation where they need to know how to get out.
Exactly.
So let's dive right in. The urban jungle, I mean, how is that different from a rural survival situation?
Well, think about it this way. You're surrounded by millions of people, concrete, glass, and you're all just crammed into this relatively small space.
Right.
It's a very different from, say, being out in the wilderness, right?
Right.
So you have to kind of rethink your approach to survival.
Okay, so what are some of the specific threats that we're dealing with in an urban environment? I mean, I can imagine like crime.
Crime, for sure.
Right.
But there's also, natural disasters,
Oh, right.
civil unrest, and even terrorist attacks.
Okay. Yeah.
And these things can erupt with very little warning, turning, what seems like a normal day in the city into a survival situation.
So how do we prepare for that? I mean, if it could just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, that's where the idea of situational awareness comes in.
Okay.
Being present in your environment, actively observing what's going on around you.
Right.
The people, the vehicles, the overall vibe,
Yep.
anything that seems out of place or suspicious, it's like a red flag.
So trusting your gut feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
That if something feels off.
There's actually a framework for this called the UDA loop, observe, orient, decide, act,
Oh, okay.
which can help you make decisions under pressure.
Okay.
So it's like a mental checklist, right?
Okay.
It helps you stay calm and focused when things are getting intense.
All right, right.
So first, you observe your surroundings,
Yeah.
you take in as much information as possible.
Okay.
Then you orient yourself to potential threats, figuring out where the danger is coming from and how it might affect you.
Okay.
Next, you decide on the best course of action based on what you've observed and how you've oriented yourself.
Uh-huh.
And finally, you act. You put your plan into motion
Okay.
decisively.
So this is something that can be used in like everyday life,
Oh, absolutely.
not just in a crisis.
Yeah. It's a mental tool that you can use every single day to avoid becoming a victim.
Right. Okay.
Reliable Prepper has a great quote about this.
Okay.
They say, wisdom lies not in seeing things, but in seeing through them. So it's not just about seeing what's around you. It's about understanding the potential threats that might be hidden in plain sight.
Right. So like anticipating what could happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we develop that kind of awareness? I mean, I can imagine that takes some practice.
Yeah, it definitely takes practice,
Right.
just like any skill. But the best thing you can do is to just start paying attention to your surroundings.
Okay.
Really look at the people you pass on the street, notice the vehicles that are parked nearby. Be aware of any changes in your environment that seem out of place.
So it's about being more present, I guess, more tuned in.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So let's say we've got a handle on situational awareness.
Okay.
What's the next step?
Well, one of the most important things you can do is master the art of blending. In one
Okay.
of our sources, Survival Dispatch calls this becoming the greyman.
The gray man.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically the idea is to become so unnoticeable, so unremarkable, that you just vanish into the background.
Okay. So I'm picturing like a spy in a trench coat,
Yeah,
blending into a crowd.
exactly.
Okay.
You want to avoid drawing attention to yourself, just become another face in the crowd.
So how do we become a gray man? What are like the secrets to blending in?
Well, it starts with your appearance.
Okay.
Survival Nova and Reliable Prepper both have some great tips on this.
Okay.
Dress like the locals. Avoid anything flashy or eye-catching, no bright colors, no logos that stand out.
Right. Yeah.
Ditch the expensive jewelry.
So being understated,
Yeah,
fitting in.
exactly.
Okay.
And Survival Nova had a tip that I found really fascinating.
Yeah.
They suggest mimicking local customs and mannerisms,
Wow.
even down to like how you greet people
Right.
or how you carry yourself.
Interesting. Okay.
It's about blending in
Yeah.
completely.
Becoming invisible.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what about our behavior then? How do we act like a gray man?
Well, it's about avoiding any actions that might make you stand out or seem suspicious. So no loitering, no photographing sensitive areas, and definitely no appearing overly anxious or out of place. Just act natural, blend in, try to move with the flow of the crowd.
So public transportation would be a good...
Oh, yeah. Public transportation is a greyman's best friend.
Okay.
It's a great way to disappear into a crowd and move around the city without attracting attention.
Right. Oh, okay.
And it's usually more reliable than trying to drive yourself in an emergency situation.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, embrace the bus, the subway,
Right.
even a taxi if you need to.
Okay, so we've talked about situational awareness. We've talked about the greyman concept.
Yeah.
What's next? Like, how do we actually start preparing for an urban escape?
Well, before you can escape, you need to know where you're going.
Right.
So that's where pre-escape planning comes in.
Okay.
It's about using your knowledge of the city to your advantage, planning escape routes,
Yeah.
identifying safe zones.
So, like, your mental map of the city becomes your weapon.
Exactly, yeah. Knowing every back alley, every shortcut, every less traveled path could be the difference between escape and, well, let's just say it's worth taking the time to really get to know your city.
Okay.
Reliable prepper. They recommend familiarizing yourself, not just with the main streets and landmarks,
Right.
but also with the less obvious escape routes.
Okay.
Think alleys, rooftops, even underground tunnels, if you have access to them.
Okay, yeah.
And Survival Nova has a great point about this. They say that in an emergency situation, your brain can actually shut down,
Oh, wow.
making it difficult to think clearly and make rational decisions.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why having pre-planned escape routes is so important.
Right.
It takes the pressure off your brain in a high-stress situation.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What about communication?
Oh, yeah.
How do we stay in touch with loved ones during an urban escape scenario?
Right. Well, that's where a communication plan comes in. Reliable Prepper suggests establishing code words or signals that you can use to communicate with your family and friends, even if you can't speak freely or use your phone.
Oh, like secret agent stuff.
Exactly. It could be something as simple as texting Bluebird, which means, I'm heading to the prearranged safe spot.
Right. Okay, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's not just about staying connected with our loved ones.
Right.
But it's about gathering information.
Exactly. Yeah. In an urban escape scenario, knowledge is power.
Right.
So, part of your pre-escape planning should also involve identifying reliable sources of information like, local news websites,
Okay.
emergency radio frequencies, even social media groups dedicated to disaster preparedness.
So it's about building a network of information just like we build a network of escape routes.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about situational awareness, we've talked about the greyman, we've talked about pre-escape planning and communication.
Right.
Now let's talk about the actual evasion, the actual moving through the city undetected.
The art of moving undetected through the urban jungle, evasion tactics.
Evasion tactics, all right, I like it.
Yeah.
So I'm picturing parkour
Right.
meets Mission Impossible, lots of running and jumping and disappearing into thin air.
Well, it's not quite that dramatic,
Okay.
but it does require a similar mindset. Quick thinking, adaptability, and a deep understanding of the urban environment.
Okay.
Reliable Prepper and Survival Dispatch, they both offer practical advice on how to move undetected through the city.
Okay, so what are some of the key principles of urban evasion?
Well, one of the most important things is to understand that the urban environment itself can be your greatest asset.
Oh.
Buildings, alleys, rooftops, even public transportation can all be used to your advantage if you know how to utilize them.
So it's about seeing the city with new eyes, not just as a place to live and work, but as a potential escape route or obstacle course.
Exactly. And they both emphasize using crowds for cover. So blending in with a large group of people, especially if you're dressed like a gray man, can make you virtually invisible.
Right, like becoming a needle in a haystack, except you want to be the haystack.
Precisely.
Okay.
And another important principle is to move quickly but quietly.
Okay.
You don't want to draw attention to yourself by running or making a lot of noise, but you need to move with purpose and efficiency.
Right.
Reliable Prepper actually suggests practicing moving stealthily through your neighborhood. Get a feel for how to move quietly and avoid making unnecessary noise.
So ninja training.
Yeah, exactly. Like ninja warrior training.
But instead of swinging from ropes, we're just walking down the street.
Exactly. And they also talk about using distraction techniques.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to get away from someone, you can create a diversion by dropping something, yelling, even pretending to trip and fall.
So creating chaos and confusion.
Yeah, a little bit of chaos. It give you a chance to slip away unnoticed.
And always have an escape route in mind.
Always, yeah.
Okay.
Before you enter any building or public space, just take a moment, scan the area,
Okay.
identify potential exits,
Oh.
a back door, a fire escape, even a window if you're desperate.
That sounds like a lot to think about, especially if you're in a stressful situation.
Yeah, which is why practicing these techniques is so important.
Okay.
The more you rehearse them, the more instinctive they will become.
Okay, yeah.
And you'll be able to just act quickly and decisively when you need to.
Okay, so we've talked about using crowds for cover, moving quickly and quietly, having an escape route in mind, creating distractions.
Right.
What other evasion tactics should we be thinking about?
Well, Survival Dispatch has a fascinating section on what they call anti-tracking techniques.
Anti-tracking, okay.
Yeah. So these are methods for making it difficult for someone to follow your trail,
Okay.
whether they're on foot or in a vehicle.
So like throwing off the scent.
Exactly. Yeah, throwing off the scent.
Okay.
And they offer some surprisingly simple yet effective tips for doing this. For example, they suggest walking on hard surfaces like concrete or asphalt whenever possible, because this makes it harder to leave footprints,
Oh, right, yeah.
like you're erasing your steps as you go.
Okay.
And they also recommend using natural features like rivers, streams, even parks to break up your trail.
Okay.
Water washes away scents and footprints. Wooded areas provide more cover.
Right.
So it just makes it harder for someone to follow you.
Okay.
And they even suggest using public transportation in creative ways to throw off pursuers.
Okay, how so?
Well, for example, you could take a bus, a few stops, and then get off and walk in the opposite direction.
Oh, okay.
Or you could transfer to a different train line and double back on yourself.
So it's about being unpredictable,
Yeah, okay.
thinking outside the box.
Okay, so surveillance cameras, I imagine those are
Oh, yeah.
a big factor.
Yes, surveillance cameras are becoming increasingly common in urban environments, so it's important to be aware of their presence
Okay.
and take steps to avoid being recorded. So not just evading physical pursuers, but like the eyes in the sky.
Yeah, exactly. The digital eyes.
Okay.
And they offer some practical tips for doing this, like, wearing a hat and sunglasses to obscure your facial features,
Okay.
walking with your head down, avoiding direct eye contact with cameras.
So being discreet,
Yeah,
minimizing our visual footprint.
exactly. And even, using common objects like umbrellas or shopping bags to shield your face from cameras.
Oh, okay.
Just, anything that can obscure your features
Right.
can help.
Okay, this is great. So urban evasion, it sounds like it's a multifaceted skill.
Yeah, it is.
It's not just one thing.
It's a lot to think about.
Right. It's awareness. It's planning.
Right.
It's quick thinking.
Yeah. And one of the most important things to remember is that panic is your worst enemy.
Okay.
If you start to freak out, you're more likely to make mistakes and draw attention to yourself.
Right.
So stay calm, breathe deeply, and focus on executing your plan.
That's good advice for life in general, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's say we've mastered the art of evasion. We've managed to stay hidden for a while.
Okay.
What about when we need to actually escape?
Yeah, well, that's where escape techniques come in.
Okay.
And Reliable Prepper offers some truly insightful advice on this, covering everything from navigating without a map to breaking free from restraints.
Wait, breaking free from restraints? Like Houdini?
Yeah, it might sound far-fetched,
Okay.
but knowing how to escape, handcuffs, zip ties, even duct tape can be a lifesaver in certain situations.
Okay.
And they actually break down these techniques in a way that's surprisingly easy to understand.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
What kind of techniques are we talking about?
Well, for handcuffs, they recommend the classic bobby pin technique.
Okay.
So you basically bend the bobby pin into a specific shape and then use it to pick the lock.
Okay.
It takes some practice, but it's surprisingly effective.
Yeah.
And then for zip ties and duct tape, they talk about using everyday objects to escape. So for zip ties, you could use like a shoelace or a piece of wire to saw through the plastic.
Okay.
And for duct tape, you can use body heat and friction to loosen the adhesive and then pull your hands free.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like we have all these secret skills that we never knew about.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about navigation?
Oh, yeah.
If we don't have a map.
So navigating without a map, they really emphasize the importance of understanding basic urban navigation principles,
Okay.
like using landmarks, the sun's position, even the flow of traffic to orient yourself.
Okay. So being more observant
Yeah,
of our surroundings.
exactly.
Oh.
And they recommend developing a mental map of your city.
Okay.
memorizing key streets, intersections, and landmarks, you know.
Like building a GPS in our brains.
Yeah, exactly. Your internal GPS.
Okay.
That way you have a sense of direction, even if you don't have a physical map.
Okay, but what about self-defense? Is that something that we should be thinking about in an urban escape scenario?
It's a sensitive topic.
Yeah.
And Reliable Prepper approaches it with caution.
Okay.
They emphasize that the goal is always to avoid confrontation whenever possible.
Right.
But they also acknowledge that sometimes self-defense might be necessary to create an opportunity for escape.
Okay.
So they recommend focusing on simple, effective techniques that can be used to disable an attacker or create an opening to get away.
So being prepared but not like looking for a fight.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And they also talk about the importance of being aware of your surroundings, identifying potential weapons that you could use in self-defense, and practicing these techniques in a safe environment.
So being prepared but also being smart.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they stress the importance of mental toughness and resilience.
Right.
You know, escaping a dangerous situation can be incredibly stressful, both physically and emotionally. So they recommend developing mental strategies for coping with fear, anxiety, and panic.
So it's not just about having the physical skills, it's about having the mental fortitude to stay calm and focus under pressure.
Exactly. Survival Nova has some great tips on this too. They talk about maintaining a positive mindset,
Okay.
focusing on the things that you can control, practicing deep breathing exercises to manage stress.
So it's like we're training our minds to be as resilient as our bodies.
Yeah, exactly. Training your mind to survive.
Okay, so let's say we've managed to escape a dangerous situation.
Okay.
What happens next?
That's a great question and one that's often overlooked.
Okay.
But Reliable Prepper and TRD-CRFT, they both emphasize the importance of what they call post-escape procedures.
Post-escape procedures. Okay.
Yeah. So this involves finding a safe haven, seeking medical attention if needed, and starting to rebuild your life.
So the aftermath,
Yeah.
coming back to normal after something really traumatic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they offer some really insightful advice on how to do this.
Okay.
So for finding a safe haven, they recommend identifying locations in your city that are likely to be secure and well-stocked,
Okay.
like police stations, hospitals, even government buildings.
Okay, so places where you can find help.
Yeah,
Get
exactly.
resources.
Oh.
Okay.
And for seeking medical attention, they emphasize the importance of getting checked out, even if you don't think you're seriously injured,
Oh, okay.
because adrenaline can mask pain. So it's essential to have a thorough medical evaluation to rule out any hidden injuries.
Okay, so it's easy to downplay our injuries when we're in that kind of situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's important to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay?
And they also talk about the importance of reconnecting with loved ones,
Right.
seeking emotional support,
Yeah.
and starting the process of healing and recovery.
Right, so it's not just about the physical.
No, definitely not.
It's about the mental and emotional as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
TRDC-RFT makes a really great point about this. They say that the aftermath of an urban escape scenario can be just as challenging as the event itself.
Wow. Yeah. That makes sense.
It's a time of uncertainty, stress, and emotional upheaval, so it's crucial to have a plan for how you're going to cope with those challenges and start to rebuild your life.
Okay, so the journey continues even after the immediate danger has passed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Reliable Prepper adds another layer to this, highlighting the legal and ethical considerations surrounding escape actions.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Well, they point out that self-defense is legal in most places.
Right.
But the use of excessive force can have serious consequences.
Okay.
And they also emphasize the importance of acting responsibly and ethically,
Right.
even in a survival situation.
So it's about knowing the rules of the game and playing by them,
Exactly.
even when the stakes are high.
Yeah, even when the stakes are really high.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today, from, situational awareness and blending in to evasion, escape, and post-escape procedures.
Yeah, we've been through a lot.
It's been a lot, but it's been really fascinating.
It has.
And I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on urban survival.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I'm excited to see what else is in store for us.
Oh, yeah, we're going to delve into some even more specialized aspects of urban escape and evasion.
Okay.
Think acquiring resources, evading surveillance, and even faking your own death.
Faking your own death. Okay, now you've really piqued my interest.
Oh, yeah.
All right, can't wait to hear more about that.
I will.
So stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah.
So faking your own death, I mean, that's got to be like the ultimate escape, right?
It's a pretty dramatic concept.
Right.
And definitely not something to be taken lightly.
Yeah.
But Survival Dispatch, they do touch on this. They explore it as a last resort.
Okay.
In extreme situations where your life is truly in danger.
So we're not talking about, like, faking a sprained ankle.
Right. No, this is not to get out of gym class.
To get out of gym class.
This is serious stuff.
Yeah.
This is for, like witness protection program level scenarios.
Okay, yeah.
Where powerful adversaries are after you.
Right.
And your only option is to completely vanish.
Okay.
So it's about creating a convincing illusion of your demise.
Okay.
So that your pursuers stop looking for you.
So how do you even go about doing that? Is there like a step-by-step guide to faking your own death?
Well, Survival Dispatch doesn't go into specific details.
Okay.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
This is a highly sensitive topic.
Right.
With some serious legal and ethical implications.
Yeah, for sure.
But they do highlight some key principles.
Okay.
Focusing on the need for meticulous planning.
Right.
A clean break from your past identity.
Okay.
And the ability to just disappear without a trace.
So it's not just like staging a car accident and jumping into a river.
No, it's a lot more to it than that.
Okay, yeah.
You need to think about every detail, from creating a believable backstory to disposing of personal belongings that could link you to your old life.
Right, okay.
It's about severing all ties, becoming a ghost.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to something a little more down to earth, I guess.
Okay.
Acquiring resources.
Yeah.
When you're on the run in an urban environment,
right,
how do you get the supplies that you need to survive?
That's a great question. And Survival Nova addresses this directly.
Okay.
They emphasize the importance of understanding the urban resource landscape.
Okay.
Knowing where to find food, water, shelter, and other essentials, even when traditional supply chains are disrupted.
Okay, so it's like becoming an urban forager.
Yeah, exactly. Think abandoned buildings, public parks, even dumpsters in a pinch.
Wow, okay.
It's about seeing opportunity where others see only waste.
Right, but what about the legal and ethical aspects of that? I mean, are we talking about dumpster diving and breaking into abandoned buildings?
It's a gray area for sure. Yeah. And Survival Nova, they're careful to acknowledge the ethical dilemmas involved.
Right.
They emphasize the importance of using discretion, respecting private property.
Okay.
And only taking what you absolutely need to survive.
Right. So it's survival, not exploitation.
Exactly.
All right. It's about, finding a balance between our needs and respecting the needs of others.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to something that's a little less morally ambiguous, I guess.
Okay.
Evading surveillance.
Oh, yeah.
In today's world of cameras and digital tracking, how do you stay off the grid?
Right. Well, that's a crucial skill in any urban escape scenario.
Yeah.
And Survival Nova, they have some great tips on this.
Okay.
They start by talking about minimizing your digital footprint.
Okay.
Reducing your reliance on technology.
Okay.
Being aware of the data trails you leave behind.
So, like, becoming less reliant on our smartphones and embracing a more analog lifestyle?
In a sense, yes.
Okay.
Think burner phones, cash transactions,
okay,
face-to-face communication. It's about going old school to stay off the grid.
Okay. Yeah, that's a challenge in our hyper-connected world.
It is. It is.
But what about physical surveillance? Like, how do you avoid being followed or watched?
Well, Survival Nova recommends developing what they call counter-surveillance awareness.
Okay.
So it's about being alert to your surroundings,
yeah,
noticing patterns in foot traffic,
okay,
being aware of vehicles that seem to be following you,
okay,
and trusting your instincts if something feels off.
So like having eyes in the back of our heads.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
And they offer some practical techniques for shaking off a tail, like, suddenly changing direction.
Oh, yeah.
Ducking into a crowded store, using public transportation to create distance.
Okay, yeah.
Just, anything to break up the pattern of your movement.
Right, so it's like an urban game of hide and seek.
Yeah.
Using the city to our advantage.
Right.
Okay.
And they also recommend being mindful of your online activity.
Okay. Right.
Avoid posting your location on social media.
Yeah.
Use strong passwords.
Okay.
Be cautious about what information you share online.
So it's not just about physical evasion.
No, it's digital discretion as well.
Right.
It's about being mindful of the data trails that we leave behind in both the physical and digital realms.
Okay, yeah. So minimizing our footprint in every way possible.
Exactly.
All right. That makes a lot of sense. And that kind of brings us back to the greyman concept, right?
Sure.
It's about blending in, not attracting attention.
Right.
And that applies to both our physical appearance and our online presence.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about navigating checkpoints.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those can be pretty intimidating.
They can be.
Right. Whether it's like a security checkpoint at an airport
Yeah.
or a military checkpoint in a crisis situation.
Right.
How do we approach those situations?
Survival Nova had some insightful advice on this.
Okay.
They emphasize the importance of understanding checkpoint procedures, knowing what to expect,
Okay.
what documents you might need, and how to behave in a way that won't raise suspicion.
Okay, so it's about being prepared,
Yeah.
knowing the rules of the game,
Right.
and playing by them.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they also recommend practicing your story.
Oh, okay.
So having a plausible reason for being there
Okay.
and a clear destination in mind.
Right, okay.
You know, if you're confident and composed, you're less likely to arouse suspicion.
Right, so projecting an air of confidence.
Yeah, even if you're feeling nervous on the inside.
Even if you're freaking out.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And pay attention to body language.
Okay.
Maintain eye contact.
Okay.
Speak clearly and calmly.
Right.
And avoid any sudden movements or fidgeting
Okay.
that might make you seem nervous or suspicious.
Okay, so controlling our physical cues.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Giving the right signals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they suggest using diversionary tactics if necessary.
Okay, like what?
Well, you know, it could involve creating a distraction
Okay.
to draw attention away from you, or exploiting a weakness in the checkpoint procedures.
Okay.
Just thinking creatively, finding ways to outsmart the system.
Okay, so every checkpoint is different.
Every checkpoint is different.
Right.
Absolutely.
Way.
So we need to be able to adapt.
I got to adapt.
Our approach.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so flexibility is key.
Flexibility is key.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about physical defense and evasion techniques.
Okay.
How important is it to know self-defense in an urban survival situation?
It's a sensitive topic and one that should never be taken lightly.
Right.
Survival Nova approaches this with caution, emphasizing that the goal is always to avoid confrontation whenever possible.
Okay.
But they also acknowledge that in certain situations, self-defense might be necessary to protect yourself or others from harm.
So it's a last resort.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's still important to have those basic skills.
So what kind of skills are we talking about?
Well, they focus on simple, effective techniques that can be used to disable an attacker or create an opening for escape. Right.
And they also emphasize the importance of situational awareness.
Right.
Identifying potential weapons that you could use in self-defense.
Okay.
And practicing these techniques in a safe environment.
Okay, so being prepared but not looking for a fight.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to go looking for trouble.
Right. Yeah.
But you want to be prepared to defend yourself if necessary.
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, they also talk about the mental and emotional aspects of self-defense.
Okay, so like the psychology of it.
Yeah, the psychology of it, the mental and emotional preparation.
Okay.
That's crucial as well.
Okay, what do they say about that?
Well, they emphasize the importance of mental resilience, stress management, and emotional regulation.
Okay.
They recommend practicing mindfulness techniques, you know, developing coping mechanisms for stress and anxiety, building a support network of trusted individuals who can provide emotional support.
So it's like training our minds to be as strong as our bodies.
Yeah, exactly. Because survival is not just about physical strength and practical skills. It's also about mental toughness, emotional intelligence, and the power of human connection.
It's about the whole package.
Yeah, exactly. It's about the whole package.
Yeah. So I guess to sum it all up, it all comes down to planning and preparedness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the key takeaway here.
Right.
You know, it's one thing to know all the techniques and strategies, but it's another thing to actually put them into practice.
Right. So we have to actually do something.
Yeah. Action is key.
Right.
You got to take action.
Okay.
And Survival Nova, they emphasize the importance of creating a detailed escape plan.
Okay.
Stockpiling essential supplies.
Right.
Building a network of trusted individuals.
Okay.
And regularly practicing your skills.
Okay, so it's about taking all this knowledge and actually applying it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Put it into practice.
Preparing ourselves mentally, physically, logistically for any potential scenario.
Yeah, for whatever might come your way.
Okay, that's great advice. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on urban survival today.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey.
It has been. It has been.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to see what else we're going to uncover.
Oh, we got more to come.
Right.
We're going to delve into some even more specialized aspects of urban escape and evasion.
All right, so stay tuned, everybody. All right, so faking your own death, I mean, that's You know, it sounds pretty extreme.
It is. It is.
But you were saying that Survival Dispatch actually talks about this.
They do. They do. They touch on it a little bit, and they present it as, a last resort in really extreme situations when your life is in danger.
So, not to get out of a speeding ticket or something like that.
Well, that's it. No, this is, life or death stuff.
Right. Serious business.
Serious business, yeah.
So, I mean, how would someone even go about doing that?
Well, Survival Dispatch doesn't get into the specifics,
right,
for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But they do emphasize the need for, meticulous planning.
Okay.
You got to have a clean break from your past identity.
Right. So it's more than just like, jumping out of a plane and parachuting away.
Yeah, it's a lot more than that.
Right.
You got to really think about, creating a convincing illusion of your death.
Right.
So you're going to need a believable backstory. You got to figure out how to dispose of personal belongings.
Okay.
Things that could link you back to your old life.
So you basically have to become a ghost.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's intense.
It is. It is.
Okay. So let's talk about something a little bit more practical.
Okay.
When you're on the run, how do you get the stuff you need, to survive?
Right. Acquiring resources.
Right.
Yeah. Survival Nova talks about this.
Okay.
And they emphasize understanding the urban resource landscape.
Okay.
So knowing where to find food, water, shelter, those essentials, even when things are disrupted. Like those traditional supply chains are broken down.
Right.
So it's about being resourceful.
So you're saying like abandoned buildings.
Abandoned buildings, yeah.
Public parks.
Public parks.
Okay.
Even, dumpsters if you're really desperate.
Right.
You gotta be able to see the opportunity where other people just see, garbage.
Okay. But is that ethical?
That's a good question. And Survival Nova, they address that.
Okay.
They're aware of those ethical considerations.
Right.
And they stress the importance of using your discretion.
Okay.
Respecting private property as much as possible.
Right.
And only taking what you absolutely need.
So you're not going in there and taking everything.
Right. No, it's about survival.
Right.
Not about, just being greedy.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's a balancing act,
Right.
You got to weigh your needs against the needs of others.
Okay. All right. Let's shift gears a little bit. Talk about evading surveillance.
Okay.
In a world of cameras and, digital tracking everywhere.
Yeah. How do you stay off the grid?
Right. Exactly.
Well, Survival Nova has some good tips on this.
Okay.
They talk about minimizing your digital footprint.
Okay.
Being aware of those data trails that you leave behind.
So being careful about what we post online.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Think about using burner phones, using cash.
Okay.
Face-to-face communication.
So like going back to the old days.
It's a little bit. Yeah. A little bit. You gotta unplug a little bit to stay off the grid.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that being really challenging in our world today.
It is. It is.
But what about physical surveillance?
Okay, so that's where they talk about developing what they call counter-surveillance awareness.
Okay.
So it's about being alert, noticing if you see the same car multiple times.
Okay.
Noticing patterns in foot traffic.
Right.
And trusting your gut if something feels off.
So like having, eyes in the back of your head.
Yeah, pretty much you got to be aware of your surroundings.
Okay.
And they talk about ways to shake a tail.
Oh, okay.
Like, suddenly changing direction.
Okay.
Ducking into a crowded store.
Right.
Using public transportation to create some distance.
So it's like playing hide and seek in the city.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Using the city to your advantage.
Right. Okay.
And, even if you think you've gotten clear, they also recommend being mindful of your online activity.
Okay.
So don't post your location on social media.
Right.
Use strong passwords and be careful about what information you share online.
So being discreet online as well.
Yeah. It's about minimizing your footprint, both physical and digital.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it all kind of ties back to the greyman concept, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's about not attracting attention.
It all comes back to that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Blending in.
Yeah. Being forgettable.
Right. Okay. Now, you mentioned something in the last part about navigating checkpoints.
Oh, yeah. Checkpoints.
I mean, those can be really nerve-wracking.
They can.
Whether it's, airport security
Yeah.
or a military checkpoint.
Right.
Or even, just a police roadblock.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we handle those situations?
Well, Survival Nova talks about this too.
Okay.
And they really emphasize understanding checkpoint procedures.
Okay.
So knowing what to expect,
Okay.
having your documents ready.
Right.
And behaving in a way that won't raise any suspicion.
Right. So it's like, being polite.
Yeah.
Following the rules.
Following the rules.
Okay.
And they recommend having a plausible reason for being there.
Okay.
A clear destination in mind, and just being confident and composed.
So even if we're feeling nervous inside, we got to project that confidence.
Yeah. Fake it till you make it.
Right. Okay.
And they also talk about body language, maintaining eye contact.
Okay.
Speaking clearly and calmly.
Right.
Avoiding any sudden movements.
Mm-hmm.
Or fidgeting that might make you seem nervous.
Okay. So sending the right signals.
Exactly. Yeah. Controlling those physical cues.
Right. So are there ever situations where we might want to create a distraction?
Yeah. They do talk about using diversionary tactics if necessary.
Okay.
If you need to create a distraction to draw attention away from you,
okay,
or if there's a weakness in the checkpoint procedures that you can exploit.
Right. Okay. So it's about thinking creatively.
Yeah. Got to think on your feet.
Right. Being adaptable.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess, it's a reminder that every situation is different.
Every situation is different.
And we got to be ready to, think on our feet and adapt our approach.
Adapt, improvise, overcome.
Okay, great. All right. Now, let's talk about something a little more physical, physical defense and evasion techniques.
Okay, yeah.
How important is it to know self-defense in a survival situation?
Well, it's, again, a very sensitive topic, and Survival Nova approaches it very carefully.
Okay.
They emphasize that, you should always try to avoid confrontation.
Right.
But they also recognize that there are times when self-defense might be necessary.
Right, to protect ourselves or others.
Exactly, yeah.
So what kind of self-defense are they talking about?
Well, they focus on simple techniques.
Okay.
Things that can disable an attacker.
Okay.
Or create an opening for you to escape.
Right.
And they stress the importance of, situational awareness.
Right.
So being aware of your surroundings, identifying potential weapons that you could use, and practicing these techniques.
So it's not about going out and looking for a fight. It's about
definitely not.
Being prepared to defend yourself if necessary.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so what about the mental and emotional aspects of self-defense? I mean, I can imagine that being in a situation where you have to defend yourself would be incredibly stressful.
It would be. And Survival Nova, they talk about that.
Okay.
They talk about mental resilience and stress management and emotional regulation.
So it's like training our minds to be as strong as our bodies?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
You got to, practice mindfulness techniques.
Right.
Have some coping mechanisms for stress and anxiety.
Okay.
Build a support network.
Right.
People who can help you.
Yeah, okay, so it's not just about the physical.
No.
It's about the mental and emotional as well.
Yeah, the whole package.
Okay, so I guess to wrap it all up,
yeah,
all of this comes down to planning and preparedness.
It really does.
Right. It's one thing to know the techniques, but we got to actually practice them.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to put it into practice.
Okay, so Survival Nova, what do they recommend?
Well, they recommend, having a detailed escape plan.
Okay.
You got to think about stockpiling supplies,
right,
building a network of people you can trust, and regularly practicing your skills.
So basically taking all this knowledge and
Yeah.
turning it into action.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
A lot of ground.
Right. I mean, from faking your own death to, finding food in dumpsters
Yeah.
to, the mental and emotional aspects of survival.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
It's been quite a journey, but it's been fascinating, and I feel like I've learned a lot.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I feel like I'm more prepared for anything.
That's the goal.
Right.
That's what we want.
So, to everyone listening out there, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Preparedness is key.
Absolutely.
And, a little bit of greyman never hurts.
Never hurts.
Right.
Yeah.
So stay safe out there, everyone. And thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.